here from the University of Idaho. This is Greg Clifford, and he is the manager of Classroom Technology Services. I'm Cassidy Hall. I'm the director of the Dojo Center, and I won't go into what that is right now because it's in my slides. Okay. So we're going to talk about the experience that we've had with Cynap. We were hoping to be able to hook a Cynap up in here and let you interact with it. We're unable to do that. So this lovely lady up front has a booth outside where she can show you everything about how it works, and it's pretty amazing. So the Dojo Center, the first question I always get is, well, how do you say that? A lot of people say Docio or you know, I get Do-si-do sometimes. I don't know where that comes from. It's Dojo, and it means I teach, I learn. Okay, so it was a Latin term given to us. We had a $3 million grant from the Albertson Foundation to establish the Dojo Center. They named it. I was very pleased with the name, right? Because that is their name and that's their choice. It was established in the summer of 2013, so this is our 5th year, the end of our 5th year. The purpose of the Dojo Center is to support technology integration, and it's not just in the higher ed realm. I travel all over the state and do tech integration stuff with K-12 teachers, K-12 educators. And then our other mission is, of course, to prepare our pre-service teachers on campus for their future classrooms. And that's a pretty big deal because of the fact that we created a space for them to help them to learn how to integrate and to be able to play with technologies in that way. And the Dojo Center is part of the College of Education, Health, and Human Sciences. And the actual lab, when we first opened the Dojo Center in 2013, I think we were planning on having a lab right away, but it didn't quite work out. You know, by the time you get through the red tape, first they were planning on putting us in the College of Ed, and then they said, oh, it's full of asbestos. We're going to have to tear that down. And so they relocated us into another building temporarily, so we were building a temporary space. And so the actual lab didn't get there until the spring of 2014. The lab itself, the goals of the lab. So we wanted this space for particular reasons. One of those reasons was that we wanted to be able to model instructional strategies where you're integrating technology. We also wanted it to be an active learning environment, and you'll see that it was arranged in pods so that the students could collaborate on projects. We wanted to explore the latest technologies, and I have to say that ITS at the University of Idaho has been absolutely wonderful in allowing us to do that, allowing us to go out of the network that exists on the rest of campus and giving us a special network that we can play with things that might not work regularly.
It's fun for us because we got no rules, you know.
Yeah.
just make some things happen.
Yeah. So when Greg wants to play with a new technology, he says, can we bring this down and test it out in your space? It works out really well for everyone. And they know what we're doing and what our ideas are behind it. I also, anytime I buy a new technology, I talk to ITS and tell them, you know, how's this going to mess with the network? Is there anything I need to be careful about? And if I'm using it on my network, it's fine. But then if we want to actually integrate it into other classrooms, there's all these other issues that we have to consider. So having a good relationship with IT in my position is really, really important. I also have a Padlet page available here, which will show you all the Dojo Center technologies that exist. People ask me all the time, well, what kind of technologies do you play with in the Dojo Center? And it's such a wide spectrum that I can't even answer that question. So I put them all on a Padlet page. I have a research assistant that keeps it updated. I actually emailed her this morning and said, I feel like a few things are missing. But anyways, it's out there if you want to get access to it. And then the last purpose of this was to have an actual workshop space for professional development activities. And that's not just for our higher ed folks on campus. We also do workshops for doc students. We do workshops for our staff, to a large extent, and then we bring in K-12 educators and do workshops, especially in the summer when they have more time or on Saturdays. So this is what the old Dojo Center Lab looked like. And we want to tell you this because this is what led us to where we are now with Cynap, okay? So this was actually a really interesting project. We wanted pods, learning pods that would seat 6 people at a table. And we wanted it to be connected so that they could connect any device that they brought with them. And then interactive so that in the front of the room, and I'll show you what that looks like, there was an iPad that you could control the entire room with. So I could take one signal from one table and push it out to the whole room. Or I could take table 1 and cross it to table 3 and take table 3 and send it to table 1. So I could do anything with all of these signals that were in the room. Interesting thing about it, that's a lot of wiring. Greg can tell you about that a little bit more.
Yeah, CompView helped build this. They did build it, right? And,
Yep.
They used just add power transmitters and receivers, so there were lots and lots and lots of data cables flowing everywhere. And for its era, it worked pretty well.
It did. It did. It had a short life. The only reason why it had a short life, once we moved out of that space, I no longer had somebody there every day to go through the equipment and make sure everything was still going. So once you don't have that in place anymore, it kind of gets a little bit distracting. The new Albertson Dojo Center Lab, same essential design in the way that it was set up. And this is just from Google Maps. I have a bunch of pictures on here. I thought it'd be easy to link out. So this is what the new space looks like. There are 6 learning pods instead of 5. Our goal for the new space was we wanted to go wireless. Okay, so get rid of all the wires, and how do you go about doing that? We looked at how many different technologies, probably everything that was on the market at that time that would allow us to go wireless. And we were most impressed with the Cynap system, and that's why we went in that direction. We really wanted to be able to say, you can bring your device into this classroom and mirror regardless of what that device is. And that was a system that was going to allow us to achieve that. Okay, so you can kind of see same pods. We increased from 30 people in the classroom to 36. What else did we add into the situation? We added a mic array system in the ceiling.
And document cameras everywhere at each station.
Yeah, so originally we did not have document cameras in the previous version of the Dojo Center. So there are ceiling dock cams. You can kind of see it way up there. I don't know if, does this thing have a, yeah, way up at the top in the middle, there's a little eye camera that's embedded in the ceiling. So every table had one of those. The lectern actually has a really high-tech one that is much greater resolution. And so that's been really great. And then we have a Panacast camera at every station so that you can connect and be able to see everybody that you're dealing with in that classroom from a distance. Sometimes we connect all cameras. Sometimes we just focus and have, a small group, and we're only using one of them. I have to go back to... Your turn.
Now we're out of the fun stuff in engineering. Right? So that's a Cynap racked up. In each of those tables, there's a little rack underneath them. So the Cynap's housed with the AMX DX Link transmitter, and the PC is down in that rack. We picked a non-traditional way of controlling our Cynaps, which I'm not sure I'd do that again. Cynaps out of the box come with a lot of really easy ways to control them, and being engineers, we're like, let's make it harder. So, yeah. So we used an AMX touch panel. So you push the BYOD button if you want to use the Cynap. There's also, besides the wireless versions of getting to the Cynap, you can just hook an HDMI cable up. So there's a a way to hook that up to, and then you can select the dot cam through the Cynap. So each table has its own little touch panel. And then we tried to duplicate the buttons that were already put there on the remote, on the Cynaps for us, on the touch panel. So you've got 4 people can connect at once, and you can push, red, yellow, green, or blue to highlight that particular person that's already on, and the arrow buttons.
And one thing to explain here is that there's a Cynap at every table in the room. So that would have meant 6 remote controls and
Yeah, so we thought, we don't want to mess chasing around 6 remote controls that might walk off, or batteries for them, so we thought, oh, this would be great to put on the touch panel. But I think there's been developments since then that make this an easier product to control than the way we did it, and we'll talk about that later.
So there were other Cynap installations in this building as well. So we're talking primarily about the Dojo Center because that was the main idea of where we got started with this and went in that direction. But we were also given the opportunity because this was, the building wasn't completely destroyed, but it had to, the asbestos had to be removed. So it was completely gutted and then remodeled. And it's such a different space than it used to be. It was a horrible, horrible space when I first got to campus. So we did this in 2 other classrooms as well. The science classroom, which is below the Dojo Center, which belongs to the College of Ed. And then we got to do a general education classroom in that building that anybody can utilize and gets utilized really widely across campus, is book solid all the time. And that room is above the Dojo Center. And then we also have Cynap systems in 2 of our smaller rooms. So we have one that's meant to be a hybrid classroom, maybe 10 to 12 students on campus, a bunch of students connecting at a distance. So they have a Cynap, and then we have one in a conference room upstairs in the building.
So there's nothing wrong with your eyes. This is unreadable. So I just threw that in because I wanted you to see how complex the Dojo Center is when it comes to wiring. There's just 6 tables. They're just repeats of each other. There's Cynap at each table, but it's pretty complex. It's not just contained within the Cynap. Go ahead and go to the other one. Each table has a ceiling document camera that feeds into the Cynap. There's a PC that feeds through an auto switcher, so when you plug in a laptop, it switches away from the PC to the laptop. That goes through the Cynap, and then that all gets routed to a matrix switcher that's huge and noisy. The instructor lectern then doesn't have its own Cynap. They just routes around there. So all this business up here, all the green lines, that's where the Cynaps are going into the matrix switcher, and then they get fed. And the instructor has their own touch panel, and they can say, I want to say table 1, I want to send table 1 to everybody, or I can send, the lectern to everybody's table. So they have a lot of control.
And you can also return all tables to their home screen, which
Yeah.
is nice because if I'm asking students to start collaborating on something, I just push that button and it goes back to their screens and they can, take over from there.
And that's just another piece just showing
Just the
how
complexity.
it works. Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Did you design all that, or did you work with a designer to do that?
So we worked with a consultant on it, and then CCS, which is now Lightworks, we worked with their engineers too on it. So it's kind of a collaborative thing. Being such a large project, doing the entire college education building, we brought in outside help. Generally, we design our own stuff in-house and do our own work, but in this case, we brought in help because we were a bit overwhelmed trying to do, what was it, $1 million
Yeah, it was a
worth
$1 million
of installations
project,
all by
so,
ourselves. So
Yeah.
yeah.
We weren't going there.
So, are any of you network engineers out here? Me neither. So, the easiest way to use a Cynap is to not hook it up to your enterprise network, although it is quite capable to do it. So this is just out of the Wolfvision's 35-page manual of how to deal with your Cynap. Right out of the box, it has its own mirrorcast antennas, its own separate wireless LAN. You can fire that thing up, and we were going to do that today, but we didn't quite get our connections figured out before doing this. But that's the easy way to hook it up. The disadvantage of hooking it up alone like that is that you've got to change your networking on your bring your own device to the Cynap network, and then you're going away from any access to the internet. So you don't have internet access anymore. But if you just want to do some quick collaboration wirelessly, you could just set one of these down and go at it.
So the way they work in our building is we have 2 different networks within the building that you connect to
We've
if
got
you're
a
in those
slide
special
too.
classrooms. Is that on the next one?
It's, yeah. This is the not as easy way. So I got to say, though, our network team's been really good at working with us. I just got integrated into our network team. We had a reorg at U of I. So I used to think, those network guys don't know very much, you know. Us AV guys are so smart. I mean, they just plug in things that click and they're done, right? Well, geez, working with those guys and working on Synapse projects, I realized, well, there's a lot more to this networking stuff than us AV people thought. 35 pages worth of network integration guide are available from Wolfvision, and they're very handy things to know. Very good stuff. And Simon Yelfimov, am I saying his name right, Andrea? And Andrea here, they will not let you fail. We had a lot of questions for them. They were super patient, great with giving demos, great at visiting our campus and getting us all hooked up and debugging things that were not the problem of the Cynap. There were our own problems with, hey, we've never done this on an enterprise network level before, and the box works pretty good. So there's a lot of firewall rules that you got to adhere to, though, to make it work right. And there's another. This is our network. Since there's no network engineers in here, you won't notice the mistake that we made on that diagram. So it's, but there's, you know, basically we just have, you know, 4 main routers, some intermediate edge routers, and then our switches. And then we have a guest network called Air Vandal Collaboration. Our main wireless network's Air Vandal Gold. So you switch over to Air Vandal Collaboration to use the Synapse, but when you do that in this mode, you retain your access to the internet.
Yeah, and it's the same login information. So we're not asking students to know something different. They're logging in the same way that they would log into Air Vandal Gold. The only difference is the Dojo Center has a Dojo Center network.
Yeah.
And that's because we have a lot of people that come to the Dojo Center that are not students at the university, so they cannot log in the traditional way. So they just need easy access for our K-12 population, especially our teachers.
For the most part, our network's pretty locked down, except for Cassidy's area, and we kind of have an open, free love sandbox going on there. Firewall rules we were talking about, these are all the ports that have to be open and working when you have a Cynap, and just one of them being closed down can cause you to have a kind of a head-scratching day, and a couple of them being closed down, you turn on your device and you just don't see that the Synapse are there.
Mm-hmm.
Or you try to route from one place to another. They're very multicast enabled machines. You have to have that available in your network. There's only like...
How do you know if one of those gets closed?
Well, that's when I lean on my network engineers, and they're really good about looking at the traffic, and Simon's good at Wolfvision. So I gave them the 35-page guide, and they go through there, and they tell me I'm going to have to open up firewalls and things.
What screening did your IT department do to get them to allow?
Oh, sorry. I don't know if I can wing it this far.
To get them to allow.
Yes!
There we go.
So,
Oh, because of the recording.
right. So what was the question?
How much kicking and screaming did your IT department do to create all these independent wireless networks and
we
configure
kind
the
of warmed
switches?
them up with the demo, which was nice having a demo period. And then when it went into production, it wasn't so foreign to them. But it was not just the network guys, the security people. Our security department, they look at everything like evil, you know, don't let
Right.
it on the network. But once they saw that the device had enterprise networking baked in from the beginning, and that we were able to secure it, it was just a matter of getting the right ports open and making ACLs that made sense. So the traffic that we wanted to get out, you know, got out, and the traffic that we wanted to keep in, stayed in. It wasn't too bad. I'd say, you know, contact us if you want to delve into the network more, and our network guys are happy to show you their firewall lists and everything to show you how they did it.
I think we softened them up a little bit too, though, because of the fact that the Dojo Center had already existed a couple years before this, and they were already used to having to make these little leeways for us. So it was kind of attached to that project as well. And so I think that maybe it helped some in the long run that happened first, and that we weren't just trying to bring in this crazy technology that was everywhere. So but they've been wonderful. They actually invited me one day from the Dojo Center to a room over in the admin building, and there were like 15 to 20 of them, and it was all about how can we better support the Dojo Center.
Whoa.
I was like, okay. So they've been really, really great about everything.
They just don't like last minute stuff.
No, at all.
So yeah, the gotchas that we ran into, multicast was blocked on our campus, so Apple TV and things like that people were bringing into the dorms and things with them. It was taking up a lot of traffic. They're all out there broadcasting all the time saying, look at me, look at me, look at me, and that's taking up network bandwidth. So our network guys at that time said, fine, boop, shut it off. That was great for them, not so great for us when we wanted to do Cynap. So we found ways around that. Right now, something we want to do is when we pull up our Apple devices in a particular building, I don't just see what's in my building. I see Cassidy's building. I see the research center if they have a Cynap. I see them all in one big long list. Mm-hmm. So we're going to work on some virtual ACLs and some other types of networking parameters that we can just see that in a particular building in the future. That's something that we haven't quite remedied yet. The computer manufacturers, Apple, Chromecast, they make updates and they don't really give us a lot of warning sometimes when that happens. So we may experience temporarily some lip sync issues or something going on, but Wolfvision is awesome about responding quickly with new firmware and updates, and they always worked with us great on that kind of stuff.
Right, and they kind of give us notice that, hey, there's a firmware update coming and this is what it's supposed to do, so that we have a heads up on what might happen.
And one of the latest things that we had, which has already been fixed by Wolfvision to make it more robust, our Nessus scans from the security guys, they were just pounding the ports that AirPlay comes in on, and they would scan those ports so often that the Cynap would say, I quit, I don't want to play anymore. They've changed some of the firmware, and now it allows more hits on that port. We've also talked to our security people and told them, there are certain things that, you don't need to scan 100 times an hour, and so we've made improvements on both ends, and it really helped the stability.
So this is, what we had was just the Cynap itself. Okay, and now there's a new addition to Cynap, which is there's the Cynap core, and there's also the matrix. And so it enables you to do what we did in a complicated way in these classrooms in a very simplistic way, where you can actually control everything from a touch monitor, and there's no additional anything built into your system. So this just was not available whenever we started the project.
If I had a time machine,
Yeah.
I would have done this, because a lot simpler approach to it. And I don't know if you've had the chance to look at Wolfvision's booth, though. They've got the touch panel out there, and all those wires and matrix switching that we have to connect these things can be done through the network now, and with a simple, nice graphical interface that makes sense, and you just drag this and drop it over there, and it routes. It's a beautiful thing.
It's pretty amazing. And so in going here to this direction, we just put, we only have one general education classroom on campus that is an active learning tech enhanced space, and that's in the College of Ed. So of course we want to keep that rolling, so we just put in a proposal to add another one, and our intention with that classroom would be to go to this sort of matchup where we could have a matrix instead of the difficult way that we did things. So these were pictures that I got from Andrea to just show you what everything looks like. And so this is the Cynap core. The Cynap core is a simplified version of the regular Cynap, and Greg can explain that a little bit better.
So not as many ports in and out on that one. What
So
else?
probably also way back when you did the room, we only had the Cynap available. But for what you were doing, the core probably would have fit that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But this just was introduced, so the full Cynap has just more features, and it's just the core features, which would have worked good, but
Yeah.
we're also work in progress.
Yeah, exactly. So this version, you know, if what you want to do mainly is mirror, this is it. You don't need the full-fledged sign-up. The core would work.
This is more like a really awesome marriage between Miracast and Apple TV, and not so much of the fancy behind-the-scenes things.
And then that's what the matrix looks like, so you can get an idea from the little touch system there that you can sort of tap and drag things, that if you want your content to go somewhere else, you can do that very easily. And then this is the advantages list with the V-Solution matrix. So the cost effectiveness between the regular sign-up and the sign-up core, pretty significant. And then, of course, if you looked at our dollar signs on how we went about making this an integrated system versus just the matrix, oh my. Okay.
So I don't know if any of you saw Dan Case's presentation on their rooms. You know, they have a uber simple, right? They use Epson projectors that they can cast to, and virtually nothing else. And we went the other extreme. We went, well, hey, let's spend, you know, $200,000 and put matrix switchers and all this other stuff in. This would be a nice in-between
Yeah.
solution.
Definitely in between. So that you can just see the list there, though, of advantages. You know, so if you put those things together and combine them, then you really do have a complete active learning setup in one little package without all the hassle of trying to go a crazy route like we had to. And that all classrooms out there right now, their active learning classrooms have, you know, sort of had to endure. And that's our contact information. Questions?
Can you speak about training the users?
Oh yeah, very good point. So we had, do we want to repeat the question?
Yeah.
There we go.
Can you speak about training the users and getting people to embrace using the technology?
Yes, absolutely. So that was interesting. There are people that will want to teach in these rooms that don't necessarily want to use the technology in the room. So we had to be careful about what classes we were putting in there and make sure that they were intentionally wanting to use it because of the technology and not just because it was a cool classroom that had little learning pods in it. And then we required it for the Gen Ed classroom that anybody that was going to teach in that space had to go through a training so that they knew how to use the system ahead of time and they could consider it in preparation for that course. So we tried to do those trainings a couple months out before their class started. There were a couple people that got put in there last minute. You know, that always happens, I think, so that we had to deal with. But there were training materials provided to us by Lightworks that kind of helped. There was a user guide and everything, and then we took the user guide and we manipulated it farther based on our first month of experience with people utilizing it. So it's changed a good bit after time, or over time. We're also manipulating what the touch screens look like right now to simplify them. So instead of having that BYOD and a complexity of how you connect, it's just, you would just be able to connect. So kind of simplifying that. One of the hardest things for the faculty was not how do I figure out how to use this, but who's going to spend time to let my students use this, or have them figure it out. So it depended on what course it was, but sometimes I would go into their course for maybe 10 minutes one day, and I would say, okay, this is how you do it. And at each table, the students would try to connect their devices, and very rarely did we run into a situation where a student wasn't able to connect pretty quickly or figure it out pretty quickly. And
You can leave it in open mode, anyone can connect, or you can control the connections to where people have to allow the connections. We were really paranoid when we put it in, and we thought people would be roaming the halls and pranking people from outside. So we made it so you had to push more buttons to connect. I think
Yeah.
in retrospect, we would just leave it open and deal with the discipline problems later if people were pranking you from the hallway.
Yeah, and we are finding now too that we're having less problem with students connecting, and it's because you know, when we first put this in, student laptops, some of them were just older, and it was hard to find the right combination to get it to work with the system. And now those are kind of getting weeded out, and any newer devices have, you know, an easy way built into them. Also, one of the reasons why I looked at this product so much over the other products that were out at the time is that we have a lot of Chromebooks in the College of Education, because Chromebooks are really important in the K-12 environment, and this works with Chromebooks. So that was a very, very important piece in this decision. Did I fully answer that?
Dave, can you throw the box?
Sure.
So in terms of the product itself, return on investment, because, you know, a Wolfvision product is an investment on any campus. Do you feel that it met your goals? And then also, because of the ability for this event, did the capacity, I mean, there's so much this appliance does. Are you using it to its capacity?
We are not using it to its capacity.
No, we really, the Cynap Core would have been a better match for what we're doing with it, the way we're using them. There's another room over in our Integrated Research Center, the new IRIC building, that's using theirs to capacity in a dry lab. They use all the functions on theirs. But in the Dojo Center, we would have been better off probably with the Core, but it didn't exist at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, but other than that, like expectation-wise, definitely met my expectations. I mean, there were, of course, some bugs that we had to work out in the system, but that wasn't really a sign-up thing. That was the whole program that was built to be able to enable the level of interaction that we wanted that we wanted to exist in the system.
Yeah, by the nature of what Dojo Center does, they bring in the newest technologies, and so we know that things aren't going to necessarily work right off the bat perfectly, that it's going to be a journey.
Yeah, they're used to me doing that. Yeah. They're like, oh God, what does she want now?
Yeah.
Right? If I call the network guys or I email, they're like, oh no.
It's like, she's been to a conference, hasn't she?
Yeah. And that's another great thing about the collaboration though, because for instance, there might be a technology that Greg sees at a conference, and he might not have the money to buy it, but he'll say, hey, do you want to try one of these out?
I call my
And-
sugar mama over there and say, hey, I'd like some R&D money, please.
And I'll buy, so typically I buy 2 of something, and I keep one in the Dojo Center to test it from my perspective, and Greg keeps one in CTS to test it from his perspective, and then to invite network people in on if it's an issue with network. So we've had several of those situations, but that helps a great deal. If they know from the beginning that I'm looking at something, they're so much more willing to let me go through with possibly integrating it into a classroom situation. And then a lot of times, because my position is so weird, I have to take that product out to a school district and try it there too, because they have a completely different set of issues to deal with. Often they have a network team that honestly is not trained at all and really has no idea what they're doing. So I have to go back and find them the support that they need to be able to make things happen in their own buildings.
Mine is a support question, 2-part. What additional support does this system require from what you had before? And what support is available for the instructor in the Dojo Center? I mean, is that like an everyday deal? Somebody's got to be on call or what?
So I would say the support, I mean, we manage everything support-wise through Classroom Technology Services. So if they're having an issue in the room, they reach out We have these new, what are they called, TSPs on campus?
Yeah, technical support partners.
Technical support partners, and you have them identified by buildings. So in the education building, they all fall under the same two people. If it's beyond their knowledge, then they reach out to Greg's team and say, hey, we're having this issue. And because Greg's team was in on getting it put in the first place, the whole installation and everything, they understand it to a much deeper level. The Dojo Center is more for the instructional purpose. So if an instructor wants to know, can I do this in this classroom, then they come to me. And I'll show them how to do that or model different ideas of how they might utilize the system to its capacity, to the abilities that are within that room. A lot of times it's just making them aware of what they have available. Like the ceiling cameras, they don't know that they're there. They'll see the dock cam on the screen and they're like, where's the dock cam? It's up there, trust us. But, so just little things like that, and explaining to them, if you want to go your groups want to go back to a group activity, just hit this button. And if you want to pull everybody back to you and take over the screens, hit this button. And just showing them the basics of interacting. It does take them 3 or 4 classes into their semester until they feel really comfortable with it. And then with the mirroring issue, some of the instructors are perfectly content to have their laptop, plug it into the lectern, be able to switch between their laptop and the existing PC. Others teach off of their phones, and so they do mirror to the system. I have an art and architecture professor in that classroom that just does phenomenal things, and they're using 4 or 5 different devices that they're mirroring throughout those classes. So we find really different levels, but so our support piece is sort of broken up a little bit depending on what kind of support they need.
Yeah, on a secondary support level, other than firmware upgrades, we don't really deal with the Cynap much at all.
Is it necessary to do a systems check like every day or every week, or what's the?
No, not at all.
We do beginning and end of the semester preventive maintenance, and that's our normal cycle. And then if the TSPs run into something where a simple reboot or instruction to somebody fails, then they'll call us in as a secondary level.
Right.
But it doesn't happen very often.
No, they're not frequent at all. Now, in the old version of the center, we did have to have that just ongoing upkeep, and that was because we had touch screens in the room, and to manage 6 touch screens all the time and keep them online and going.
They were all iPads, and people
Yeah.
would push buttons and manage to get them out of touchscreen mode and unpair them and things. So that was a little bit of a maintenance nightmare.
Yeah. So looking at the old model and the new model is significantly less headache for us, and we don't really have too many issues with them at all.
Greg, if I understood you correctly, the other Synaps in the other rooms are not currently interconnected.
No,
But
they're not.
are there plans to make that happen at some point, or?
Nobody's asking for it right now.
Okay.
But yeah, pretty much they exist in little silos in each building. Unfortunately, you can see the other ones from the other buildings the way that the network's set up right now, so it confuses people sometimes because they all start with like Ed, all at once in her room, say ED, whatever room number, and Cynap. So if you get a big long list, it just says Cynap, 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 and you have
Yeah.
to figure, what building am I in?
I
What
think we
room am I
have,
in?
We have a setting solution for that already, I'll show you.
Oh, awesome,
Where you
Oh,
limit
good.
the distance, so.
great,
That's
Nice.
already
See?
pretty much.
already patched.
Yeah,
See?
I'm glad I came to conference.
What have the reactions been from the students as far as using the technology?
It depends on the course. So some of the students are like, they're just as happy to plug in. And there still is the ability to plug in at a table as well, but just there's one cable. So some students are still in that path. But the art and architecture students, oh my God, they're all over it. The engineering students, There's a teacher that teaches in there from ag education. They've all used it pretty regularly and pretty high test. The education students are the ones that are sort of, they're a little more back offish about it. It takes a while to get them to want to utilize it. So I think it depends how much tech savviness they already have, as to whether or not that's something that's natural for them to want to share their screen. Yeah, so it very subject specific.
The more it catches on, we have 80 classrooms, and now people are going to the other classrooms that don't have it, and they're like, why can't I do this? Put one in, you know.
Perfect.
Right,
Thank
which
you.
is why we're asking for the other classroom to be built, because we have like a waiting list now for that classroom, and because that's the only one that's truly gen ed and can be scheduled by anyone, you know, it's really not fair. And then you'll get a faculty member who gets it one semester but doesn't get it the next semester. And then they kind of have to mix up what they're doing. So yeah, in the College of Ed, because we do have one classroom, the Dojo Center does not get scheduled for classes. The only class that gets taught in there is the class I teach, which is for the pre-service teachers to learn how to utilize technology. And that's because that's what the lab was created for. The science classroom that has the same basic setup, if we have time in the schedule that the College of Ed is not utilizing it, then we will push another class in there and make sure that it's at full capacity as well. But there are people all over campus that are like, why can't we have one of these rooms in our building? Especially, you know, when you look at like engineering and programs that, and art and architecture, like if they could steal my room tomorrow, they'd be all over that. Yeah, so just certain programs they want it now. And unfortunately, there's a path to get there.
Her room's a little bit fun to go in. You wouldn't want to necessarily teach a class without turning her other things off, because she's got 3D printing going in there. There's creepy little robots roaming around and looking at you and stuff, and it's like kind of a distraction for the rest of the classes.
Yeah. Oh, this is for you, Greg. Given everything you guys have just said, is this becoming a classroom standard at U of I? Could it?
I wouldn't call it a standard. It is, I mean, it's our preferred BYOD device right now.
Okay.
We haven't got a chance to, you know, install cores anywhere. I think if we go that way, that it could become a standard, yeah.
Do you have any kind of metrics on the usage of the devices, like in how many devices connect to it and how many professors are using it, so the numbers?
We keep some metrics we have AMX control everywhere, so we can tell you, you know, how many times somebody pushed the sign up button or that sort of stuff. We haven't had anybody ask us for those numbers yet, so
Yeah,
we should probably come up with those and do something with them.
probably. Not yet.
With the V Solution, the admin software, are you guys using that to admin all the sign-apps?
We'll use it to push firmware out sometimes. That's the main use that we do with vSolution for our particular installation. My guys actually like to go around with a USB to do firmware, because that way they get to touch everything and inspect it. There's not that many. We only have 18. There's another university that has 80. What was that college? But yeah,
University of Tennessee.
if I had 80 of them, I wouldn't go around with a USB drive, but 18's doable.
Really? Yeah, and you know, keep in mind that if you want any of this information, we're more than willing to share our experience at a deeper level with network people or whoever. The network guys love to talk about that kind
Yeah, I
of
should have
stuff.
brought one. The last time I took a network guy to AV conference, he went back and wanted to redesign the whole network, and so I got in trouble, so.
Don't do that anymore. But yeah, if you do have any questions, like follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we can provide you any of the complexity of things that we went through in our system, to, you know, how we could have used the system versus how we use it now.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Thanks for coming.